Why are you addicted to things that make you miserable? Have you ever noticed something strange about yourself? You know something is making you unhappy, you know it is wasting your time, you know you feel worse after doing it, and yet, you keep going back to it. You tell yourself you will stop. You delete the app. Then download it again. You decide you won't check their profile anymore, but somehow, you're there again. You promise yourself you'll sleep early, and 3 hours later, you're still scrolling. You say you're done with that person, but you're checking whether they viewed your story. You tell yourself you'll focus on your goals, but your hand automatically reaches for your phone. And afterward, you feel empty, guilty, unproductive, sometimes even disappointed in yourself. So why do you keep returning to something that makes you miserable? Why do we repeatedly choose things that we already know are hurting us? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question is this: what if the thing you call entertainment is slowly becoming an addiction? Not necessarily an addiction that looks dramatic. Not necessarily something everyone notices. Sometimes addiction looks like checking your phone every few minutes. Sometimes it looks like endlessly scrolling through videos. Sometimes it looks like going back to a person who repeatedly hurts you. Sometimes it looks like pornography. Sometimes it looks like gossip. Sometimes it looks like constantly seeking attention. Sometimes it looks like shopping whenever you're sad. Sometimes it looks like gaming for hours because reality feels uncomfortable. Sometimes it looks like staying awake all night because you don't want to be alone with your thoughts. And sometimes, it simply looks like avoiding your own life. You don't necessarily enjoy these things anymore. You just don't know how to stop. And that is the difference between something you enjoy, and something that controls you. Think about your phone. You unlock it without even thinking. You open one app. Then another. Then another. You weren't even looking for anything. You just wanted to check one thing. But 20 minutes disappear. Then 40. Then an hour. And suddenly you realize, I didn't even enjoy that. So why did I keep scrolling? Because your brain doesn't always chase happiness. Sometimes it chases stimulation. And there is a huge difference. Happiness gives you peace. Stimulation gives you something to react to. Every notification. Every new video. Every message. Every like. Every comment. Every new piece of content. Your brain keeps receiving tiny rewards. And because another reward might be 1 second away, you keep scrolling. You keep checking. You keep refreshing. You keep searching. And eventually, silence starts feeling uncomfortable. You sit without your phone for 5 minutes, and suddenly you don't know what to do with yourself. You feel bored, restless, uncomfortable. So you reach for the phone again, not because you need it. Because you've trained yourself to escape discomfort with stimulation. And this is where the problem becomes much deeper. Because sometimes the thing you're addicted to isn't the phone. It's escape. You are escaping boredom. Escaping loneliness. Escaping anxiety. Escaping insecurity. Escaping sadness. Escaping responsibilities. Escaping thoughts you don't want to think about. And your phone simply becomes the easiest door to run through. But every time you escape your feelings instead of dealing with them, they wait for you. You can scroll for 5 hours, but when you put the phone down, the problem is still there. The loneliness is still there. The insecurity is still there. The unfinished work is still there. The emptiness is still there. And now you have another problem. You wasted 5 hours. This is why some habits feel good while you're doing them, but terrible afterward. The temporary relief is real. But it doesn't solve anything. It only delays the discomfort. And the more you repeat this cycle, the stronger it becomes. You feel stressed. You scroll. You feel better for a few minutes. Then you feel guilty. You become more stressed, so you scroll again. And the cycle continues. But this doesn't only happen with phones. It happens with people too. Sometimes you're addicted to someone who isn't good for you. You know the relationship is unhealthy. You know they don't respect you. You know they keep disappointing you. You know you're constantly anxious because of them. But when they message, your entire mood changes. You feel important again. You feel wanted again. You feel that temporary rush. And then they disappear. You become anxious. You overthink. You check your phone. You wonder what happened. Then they return, and the cycle starts again. You may think you're addicted to the person. But sometimes, you're addicted to the emotional highs and lows. The attention. The validation. The uncertainty. The feeling of finally being chosen. And this is dangerous because you can start confusing emotional chaos with love. You start thinking, if I miss them this much, they must be important. If I can't stop thinking about them, they must be meant for me. Not necessarily. Sometimes you are not attached because someone is good for you. Sometimes you're attached because your mind has become dependent on the emotional cycle. And the same thing can happen with social media. You post something. You wait. Someone likes it. You feel good. More people like it. You feel even better. Then the notifications stop. And suddenly, you wonder whether people still care. You post again. You check again. You delete something because it didn't get enough attention. You start measuring your worth through numbers. How many followers? How many likes? How many views? How many people replied? And slowly, you stop asking, do I like my life? And start asking, does everyone else like my life? That is a dangerous shift. Because now your identity depends on other people's reactions. And if people don't react, you feel like you don't matter. But your worth was never supposed to come from an algorithm. Your worth was never supposed to come from strangers. Your worth was never supposed to depend on whether someone replied to your message. And this is where our relationship with Allah becomes extremely important. Because Islam teaches us that the heart was not created to find permanent satisfaction in temporary things. You can fill your schedule. Fill your room. Fill your phone. Fill your social media. Fill your relationships. Fill your bank account. Fill your calendar. But still feel empty. Why? Because the heart needs something deeper. Allah says in the Quran that hearts find rest in the remembrance of Allah. And perhaps that's what many of us are missing. We're constantly stimulating the mind, while starving the soul. We're consuming hundreds of pieces of content every day, but barely giving ourselves a few quiet minutes with Allah. We know what celebrities are doing. We know what influencers are wearing. We know what strangers are eating. We know what happened on someone's vacation. We know what everyone is posting. But do we know what is happening inside our own hearts? When was the last time you sat quietly without your phone, and asked yourself, am I actually okay? Where is my relationship with Allah? What am I becoming? What am I spending my life on? What am I feeding my heart? These questions are uncomfortable. And that's exactly why we avoid them. Because distraction is easier than reflection. Scrolling is easier than thinking. Entertainment is easier than confronting yourself. But you cannot heal what you refuse to face. And maybe that's why silence scares you, because when the noise disappears, you hear yourself. You hear the thoughts you've been avoiding. You remember the things you regret. You remember the person who hurt you. You remember the goal you abandoned. You remember the salah you've been delaying. You remember the version of yourself you wanted to become. So you pick up the phone again. Another video. Another notification. Another distraction. Another escape. But what if, The silence you're running from is exactly where you need to meet yourself. Maybe you don't need more entertainment. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you don't need another person. The addiction to validation. Some people cannot make a decision without asking what others think. What will they say? Will they approve? Will they like me? Will they think I'm successful? Will they think I'm attractive? Will they think I'm interesting? And eventually, you stop living your life. You start performing it. You become a character designed for an audience. But here's the problem. The audience changes. People's opinions change. Trends change. Beauty standards change. Social media changes. And if your identity is built on them, you will constantly feel unstable. Islam gives you something much stronger. Your identity is not based on people's approval. Your value is not determined by popularity. Your success is not determined by attention. Your ultimate purpose is not to impress people. It is to live in a way that pleases Allah. And that changes everything. Because once you stop living for everyone's approval, you become free. You can say no. You can leave. You can grow quietly. You can work without announcing it. You can worship without posting it. You can improve without needing applause. You can make mistakes without feeling like the entire world is watching. And maybe that's what you need. A private life that is healthier than your public life. A relationship with Allah that doesn't need to be posted. A discipline nobody knows about. A struggle you fight quietly. A version of yourself that becomes better without needing anyone to notice. Because not everything valuable needs an audience. Some of the most important changes in your life will happen when nobody is watching. And maybe, that is where your freedom begins. Not when you finally get more followers. Not when you find the perfect relationship. Not when you become rich. Not when everyone notices you. But when you stop needing the things that were controlling you. Imagine waking up one day, and realizing you don't need to check your phone immediately. You don't need that person's message to feel valuable. You don't need strangers to validate you. You don't need hours of scrolling to escape yourself. You don't need to return to the same sin. You don't need constant stimulation. You can sit in silence. You can pray. You can think. You can work. You can rest. You can live. And most importantly, you can feel peace. That is what you should be chasing. Not endless stimulation. Peace. Because there is a difference between being entertained and being fulfilled. You can be entertained for 12 hours and still feel empty. But a few sincere moments with Allah can change the state of your heart. So tonight, look at your habits honestly. Not emotionally. Not defensively. Honestly. What do you keep returning to even though it makes you miserable? What do you do when you're bored? What do you do when you're lonely? What do you do when you're stressed? What do you run toward when life becomes difficult? And ask yourself one final question. Is this thing helping me become the person I want to meet on the day of judgment, or is it slowly turning me into someone I won't recognize? Because your habits are not just passing time. They are shaping you. Every scroll. Every choice. Every hour. Every conversation. Every private moment. You're becoming someone. The question is, who? Don't wait until years have passed to realize you spent your youth escaping your own life. Don't wait until your attention is destroyed. Don't wait until your relationships are damaged. Don't wait until your salah becomes difficult. Don't wait until your heart becomes dependent on things that can never truly satisfy it. Start now. Put the phone down. Make wudu. Pray. Go outside. Read Quran. Work on something meaningful. Call someone you love. Sit quietly. Make dua. And if you fall back into an old habit, don't say, I'm hopeless. Get back up. Try again, because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. You don't need to become a completely different person tonight. You just need to stop giving your worst habits unlimited access to your life. And remember, the things that give you the strongest temporary pleasure can sometimes leave the deepest emptiness afterward. So choose carefully what you feed your mind. Choose carefully what you feed your heart. Choose carefully who you give your attention to. Because your attention is your life. And where your attention goes, your life follows. You only have one life. Don't spend it constantly escaping from it. Don't give your best years to a screen. Don't give your heart to people who destroy your peace. Don't give your soul to things that disappear the moment you stop consuming them. Turn back to Allah. Build discipline. Protect your heart. And learn to sit with yourself again. Because maybe the peace you've been searching for was never inside the next video, the next message, the next relationship, the next like, the next purchase, the next distraction. Maybe the peace you've been searching for was waiting for you in the moment you finally stopped running and turned back to Allah.